Okay, let's unpack this stack of sources about Bandarban, Bangladesh.
Sounds good.
This is a region people often call the Daughter of the Hills, right? Nestled in the Chittagong Hill Tracts.
Exactly. Known for its really stunning green mountains, rivers, waterfalls, just incredible natural beauty.
It really sounds like it.
And the sources you've pulled together, they give us a fantastic way in. We've got, personal travel accounts.
Yeah, the day-to-day stuff.
Right, what it feels like on the ground.
Yeah.
And then also broader info, history, tourism updates, a good mix.
Perfect. So our mission for this deep dive is really to explore what it actually feels like to travel there. Experience Bandarban.
Get beyond the pictures.
Exactly. Uncover the beauty, sure, but also the practical side for visitors and get a sense of its past and present.
Give people a well-rounded picture of what makes it unique.
That's the plan. Ready to jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so getting there, that's always the first hurdle, isn't it? Often starting from Dhaka.
Yeah, that seems common. The sources highlight that a lot of travelers start from places like the Iramba bus stand in Dhaka.
And there are decent bus options. Overnight, usually.
Seems so. Comfortable overnight buses, AC business class even, from companies like Roby Express or St. Martin Hyundai.
Right. And what's the cost like? And the journey itself?
Well, for that AC business class, you're looking at somewhere around 1,800 taka.
Okay.
And yeah, it's an overnight trip. You typically leave Dhaka quite late, maybe 10:45 p.m., like one account mentioned, though times obviously vary.
Of course.
There's usually a stop, Camilla was mentioned. And then you roll into Bandarban pretty early the next morning.
Like how early?
Around 7 a.m. seems typical.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a proper overnight journey.
Got it. So you arrive maybe a bit sleepy in the morning light. How do you get from the bus stand to, say, your hotel?
Actually, the bus stand seems pretty well located for a lot of places.
Oh, convenient.
Yeah, one traveler found their hotel, Hotel Dimor, was less than a kilometer away. So grabbing a local ride,
Like a rickshaw.
a rickshaw, yeah, or an auto rickshaw, it's cheap for that short distance, under 100 taka.
Nice and easy then. Okay, settling in. Let's use Hotel Dimor as an example. What are accommodations like?
Well, sources suggest you can find comfortable options. Hotel Dimor, for instance, they had an AC king room that sounded pretty well set up.
Like standard stuff?
Yeah, comfy bed, TV, but also nice touches like a tea and coffee station, kettle, wardrobe, even a fridge, and, basic toiletries.
That sounds pretty good. Any particular highlight about the room?
Yes, definitely. One person had a hill view room with a balcony.
Ah, the view.
They said it was truly stunning, overlooking the hills, the city area, and the location itself near the bus stand was a big plus for getting around.
Makes sense. And the price? Any idea?
The figure mentioned was around 3,000 taka. They noted there might even be discounts sometimes, like 50% off potentially.
Okay. Bathroom okay?
Described as basic but decent. Towels, hairdryer provided. Functional.
Sounds like a solid base. Did it include breakfast?
It did, yeah. Complimentary buffet style.
Oh, nice. What kind of food?
Typical Bangladeshi breakfast items.
Yeah.
Bhaji, paratha, vegetables, some fried rice, chicken, simai.
Yeah.
The drill. Tea, coffee, eggs.
Standard fare.
One source felt the options were maybe a bit limited, but hey, it's free breakfast. Perfectly fine to start the day.
Totally. Okay, so you're settled in, you step outside. What's the first impression of Bandarban town itself?
Well, right near places like Dimor, you've got restaurants handy. And crucially, access to local transport.
Right, for getting further afield.
Exactly. The Ganesh Chatter area seems to be a key spot. You can easily find those smaller CNG auto rickshaws there.
And the bitter ones.
Yeah, the Chandragari, those Jeep-like vehicles, essential for heading into the hills. They're all readily available there.
Markets are always a good window into local life. What did the sources say about them?
They checked out the textile market, Bormanis market, found it maybe smaller than expected. Mostly just individual shops, not like a huge sprawling thing.
Okay. What about other markets?
The meat market seemed to leave a more vivid impression.
Oh, how so?
One source was quite direct about it. They described the hygiene as noticeably poor.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and mentioned a strong smell. It actually kind of put them off eating meat locally during that visit.
Wow, that's quite an impact. It shows that contrast, right? Tourist facilities alongside very traditional local scenes.
Absolutely. And speaking of local life, the river runs right through it.
Sangyu River.
Yes, you get views of it easily, and it's clearly active. Sources saw boats carrying wood, bamboo.
Into town.
Yeah, showing that connection to the local economy and natural resources. Pretty interesting glimpse.
Okay, so moving beyond the town center, The sources definitely highlight practicalities. Security seems to be a big one.
That's a really crucial point, yeah. When you travel out, especially towards the hill destinations, you will see a noticeable presence.
Police, army.
Both police, different kinds of army personnel, even border police. And in some more remote spots, you might actually need a local guide.
And this involves checkpoints, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Heading towards places like Y Junction or Chimbuk, you need to be ready to stop at army checkpoints.
What do they need?
Show your ID, like your NID card if you're Bangladeshi, and they record your names. It's just standard procedure for travel in these areas of the old tracks.
It sounds like there's also a broader effort for tourist safety.
Yes, one tourism report we looked at mentioned that. Tourist police are apparently increasing security measures, coordinating with the district police.
Especially for those more remote spots.
Exactly. Places further out. So it suggests an effort to, balance making it accessible for tourists while keeping things secure.
One of the travelers, a vlogger, added a personal note about filming security.
They did, yeah. Mentioned a past experience, I think, in Iran that makes them cautious about filming police or army now.
Interesting. Just a personal perspective on how past travel shapes current behavior.
Right. And that same source, the vlogger, also made a very specific statement about their own international travel situation.
Ah, yes, the point about the U.S.
Yeah. They stated quite clearly that they are currently unable to travel to or even transit through the United States.
And they attributed it directly.
Yes, specifically to former President Donald Trump. They even said they might explain why in another video if people were interested.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're reporting this because it was in the source material.
Absolutely. We're just relaying what the source stated, factually. No commentary, no taking sides, just presenting the information found.
Understood. Okay, let's get back to navigating Bandarban itself. Aside from security, what about the weather?
Oh, definitely a factor. One source visited when it was hot, like 40 degrees Celsius hot.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, that kind of heat makes hiking or even just being out and about pretty challenging. Something visitors really need to factor in depending on when they go.
For sure. But despite the heat and the checkpoints, the real draw is the scenery, right? Let's talk about exploring those famous spots. Nilgiri, Chimbuk.
Definitely. A really common route seems to head out towards Nilgiri.
What do you see along the way?
Well, you often stop at Malankari first. It's got lovely views over the Sangu River.
And another checkpoint.
And yes, one of those police checkposts where you need to sign in, basically. Log your names.
Okay. And further on, there's a waterfall. Shailaprapat?
That's right, Shailaprapat. But its condition really depends on the season.
Ah, less water in the dry season.
Exactly. The sources were clear.
Oh.
That if you visit outside the monsoon, the water flow can be minimal. Kind of underwhelming, maybe.
So monsoon is better for that one.
Highly recommended, yeah. For the waterfall itself and just the surrounding nature, much more vibrant green. Plus, there are local shops nearby selling hand-woven crafts.
The drive itself, though, sounds like part of the experience.
It really does. The road winds up to the hills, apparently offering beautiful views all along the way.
Any other roadside features?
Yeah, local vendors selling fresh, seasonal fruits, pineapples, mangoes, papayas. Right there on the roadside. A real taste of the place.
Lovely. Now, a key point on this route is the Y junction. Tell us about that.
Right, the Y junction is pretty significant. It's another army checkpost. ID check again.
Okay.
And it's important because the road literally splits there. One way heads off towards Ruma, Bogale, Kyokradong,
Yeah.
those areas.
Yeah. And
The other fork, or maybe going straight right, takes you towards Chimbuk and then Nilgiri.
Got it. So let's take that road towards Chimbuk Hill. What's it like there?
Chimbuk sounds great. Fantastic views from the top. They say you might even see clouds below you during the monsoon.
Wow. Is there an entry fee?
A small one, yeah. About 20 taka per person. You pay it just after that army checkpost.
And what's up there besides the view?
The sources mention a place called Nobo Shatter, apparently good for camping, and decorated spots, like trees done up for photos, popular photo points.
Can you stay there?
Yeah, there's actually a resort right there on Chimbuk Hill, too.
Were there specific named viewpoints mentioned?
They mentioned a couple, yeah. The Titanic viewpoint and the Double Hand viewpoint.
Catchy names. What can you see?
Panoramic views, again, of the hills.
Yeah.
And you can look down on these little clusters of houses.
Like villages.
Yeah, sometimes called Jumkor or Paras, traditional hill houses or hamlets. And again, the sources just kept saying how incredibly green it all looks during the monsoon. Breathtaking.
And then further along that road, Nilgiri. Sounds like a highlight.
Oh, definitely. Nilgiri is often the sort of grand finale of a day trip in that direction. It's seen as a really significant place, sometimes called historic Nilgiri.
Is there an entry fee there too?
Yep, around 100 taka per person. And then there's a separate fee for parking your vehicle, like if you came in a CNG. Another 100 taka for that.
And Nilgiri is managed differently, isn't it?
That's right. It's actually managed and controlled by the army. That includes the resort they have up there as well.
Interesting. What kind of facilities can visitors expect?
It seems pretty well set up for tourists. Shops selling local goods.
From the local ethnic groups?
Yeah, they specifically mentioned items from small ethnic groups. Also a first aid center, a mosque, and a canteen.
What's the canteen like? Food options.
Basic but useful. They offer things like refreshing juices, raw juice for 60 supers, taco was mentioned, and simple set meals. One source noted a meal for about 135 taka.
And you mentioned photos before. Nilgiri sounds like a prime spot.
Absolutely. Loads of viewpoints specifically designed for taking pictures. And the ultimate view seems to be from the helipad.
A helipad?
Yeah, right at the peak. Gives you probably the best 360-degree panorama of the whole hilly landscape.
Amazing. Did they mention anywhere else nearby Nilgiri?
Just briefly, a road called Bedchara Road, described as really beautiful with views of the Sango River and a bridge, suggests you could potentially explore even further.
Okay, so those are the big hill destinations. What about popular spots closer to Bandarban city itself?
Yes, two key ones are Megla and Nilachal. They seem easier to get to.
How do you reach Megla?
You can use local transport.
Yeah.
A Mahindra, that's a type of local shared vehicle for a really small fare, like 40 taka. Or just hire a CNG for yourself.
And what's at Megla? What do you do there?
There's an entry fee again, about 50 taka. The main features are a suspension bridge over a lake.
Like the one in Rangamati.
Yeah, described as similar. Feels a bit shaky, but apparently quite stable. You're not supposed to run on it.
Good rule. Anything else?
You can rent boats on the lake, kayaks, pedal boats. And one source mentioned cable car line.
A proper cable car?
Well, based on the description, it sounded more like maybe a zip line across part of the lake or park area.
Yeah, okay. Any religious sites nearby?
There's a Buddhist temple, apparently located on the road between Megla and Nilachal.
Worth a visit.
Well, one source found it was closed for entry when they went, due to construction work, so maybe check ahead.
Good tip. And Nilachal, what's the verdict on that one?
Exceptionally popular.
Yeah.
And seems like for very good reason. It's super close to the city.
How close?
Only about 5 kilometers. Really accessible, and it offers just stunning viewpoints.
Views of what specifically?
From Nilachal, you get these wide panoramic views of the entire Bandarban city spread out below you.
This sounds incredible.
Yeah, and it's particularly famous as the spot for sunset.
Yeah.
Really renowned for it.
Any facilities up there?
Yep. Similar to Nilgiri in a way.
Yeah.
Vendor selling fresh juice, mango juice for 30 taka a glass was mentioned.
Nice.
Even photographers offering to take your picture for like 10 taka. And you might find shops selling Burmese goods too.
Okay, so lots of viewpoints. What about other activities? Did people do any hiking?
Yes, definitely an option if you can handle the heat. One source specifically hiked up Tiger Hill.
How long did that take?
About 40 minutes, they said. Tough in the heat, but the goal was a viewpoint known for great sunsets.
And down by the river? Any boating?
Yeah, the Sangu River again. You can hire boats for trips along the river. Seems like it costs around 300, 400 taka per hour, based on one account. A nice leisurely option.
Let's circle back to daily life and, importantly, the food. What else did the sources mention eating?
Well, beyond the hotel breakfast, they tried various things for lunch.
Like what?
Standard stuff like vegetable curries, dal, beef, but also more local specialties like different portas mashed dishes.
Oh, yeah.
Spicy Pangash fish borta was mentioned, tomato borta, also tried some local chips, and of course the jackfruit.
Ah, the famous jackfruit. How is it described? Divisive.
Ah, yeah, seems like it can be. One traveler really enjoyed it, found it tasty, but noted that some people find the taste, well, a bit like cheese. So maybe an acquired taste for some.
Interesting comparison. What about just observing life there compared to, say, Dhaka?
A huge contrast, obviously, between the city and the rural areas. But one interesting observation was seeing modern tech, even in quite rural spots.
Like what?
Specifically mentioned seeing solar panels, solar technology being used, even out in the villages.
That is interesting. Shows how things are changing.
Now, something else that adds a really important layer is the history of the region.
Yes, the sources touched upon some quite difficult aspects of the past.
They did. One source in particular didn't shy away from it. They talked about the history of Bangladesh and the conflict.
Relating to Pakistan.
Yes. They use phrases like Pakistan doing a lot of harm and referred to 1971 as a very crazy war.
And there was a specific, very disturbing statistic mentioned in that source.
Yes. That source included the claim that around 400,000 women were raped by the Pakistani army during the war. They also noted India's help in gaining independence.
And again, just to reiterate for our listeners, we are relaying this information as it was presented in that specific source material we reviewed.
Exactly. It's crucial to state that. We're reporting what the source contained, not adding our own judgment or verification beyond that.
And did other sources add any different historical context?
Yes. Others provided a broader historical view, mentioning things like the Bowman Circle, part of the traditional administrative structure, and the historical role of the Mang kings or dynasty in the region's past.
So understanding that complex and sometimes painful history definitely adds depth to understanding Bandarban today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It provides context for why this region, the Chittagong Hill Tracts, has such a distinct identity, and perhaps why you see certain things today, like that visible security presence we talked about.
Right. Bringing it back to tourism then, what's the overall picture? How is Bandarban doing as a destination?
Sources suggest it's definitely a popular spot, especially during holidays like Eid. Hotels get booked up, businesses do well.
And there was some recent positive news regarding travel restrictions.
Yes, quite significant. Restrictions on travel to Ruma and Thanchi Upazilas, two specific areas, were lifted on June 6th.
How long were they in place?
For about 13 months, so lifting them was big news. Tourism businesses there are apparently really hopeful about recovering now.
That's good to hear. And getting around transport seems generally available.
Yeah, seems quite feasible. The availability of those Chandragaudiya vehicles, over 400 operating, one source said, makes accessing the various hill sites pretty straightforward for tourists.
And for people thinking about visiting, maybe families, what was the general feeling about safety from the sources?
Despite the checkpoints and visible security, one traveler explicitly mentioned feeling secure during their trip.
And felt it was okay for families.
Yeah, they suggested it seems suitable for families.
Yeah.
So the security presence didn't necessarily feel threatening, perhaps more procedural.
Okay. And finally, if you want the absolute best natural beauty, when should you go? Any consensus?
Yes, a very strong consensus in the sources on this one.
Monsoon season.
Monsoon season. That's when the landscape is at its most vibrant green, the rivers are full, and those waterfalls like Shailaprapat are really flowing and impressive.
Right. So wrapping up this deep dive then.
It seems Bandarban is this incredible mix, isn't it?
Definitely. You've got this absolutely breathtaking natural beauty, the hills, the rivers, the potential for seeing clouds from the peaks.
Just stunning landscape.
But that sits alongside the practical realities, the journey there, the local markets, and this very visible security presence that's clearly rooted in a complex history.
Yeah, and it's a place that is set up for tourism. There are hotels, facilities, transport options, but it holds these deeper layers.
It really is a fascinating blend. Picturesque scenery right next to reminders of a difficult past and ongoing security considerations.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, when you encounter a place like Bandarban, where the natural world is just so incredibly beautiful, almost overwhelmingly so, but you also become aware of this challenging history, the security, how does that complexity change things?
Does it deepen your understanding or appreciation of the beauty you're seeing?
What does it mean to navigate that? To appreciate the present beauty while acknowledging those echoes of the past in the landscape, in the procedures, in the air? Something to think about.